Well, I'd love to share my screen. I'm going to talk about the morphogenetic field from the perspective of how it affects us, how we're affecting us. What does it mean for our holographic DNA? How do we use that information for this evolutionary process? And just give you a little clearer picture as to what it is. I'm a very visual person. I feel like visuals sometimes help us link the dots between how our everyday actions is affecting this collective. So I'm going to share a little bit about that. These are the main points that I want to share with you, and I'm just going to show what each one of those actually means. We're going to break it down. So in the morphogenetic field, the human organism is a hologram of self-organized information. And the human organism is, and Alan kind of went into the, what that is. He broke that down a little bit, and I'll go into that a little bit more as well. The human organism is a fractal projection of its origin, of source. So when this source information is becoming fractal, encasing into these physical form that we are, this self-organized information knows how and what to project into the physical form by its resonance. So how we are essentially moving through time and space in order to be encased into this physical form, which is a hologram of this intelligence. An example about how this morphogenetic field functions, it has an intelligence, it has instructions. It's an instruction in order to create the form. And so, for example, experiments that were done to show us that were experiments with a planarian worm, in which they removed the eyes surgically, and by stimulating other parts of the organism, the eye rebuilt itself on its own. And so this is how we are looking at the morphogenetic field as a set of instructions. It's a construct of instructions. There's an intelligence to that without any kind of genetic modification, the organism in itself can create itself. It can create its own form. We also see that with phantom limbs, in that we are, people that lose an arm are able to connect, and it's almost as if they feel that they're moving their arm within the body. There is a holographic network to the parts of our body. So we also see that with our thoughts and our memory, how memory is stored within the body. The memory is not stored in one location in the brain or in one location in the body. It's an entire holistic network of information and data that is being stored. We also see that in pranic healing examples, where we are healing cancer from the physical body, and through the thoughts and the intentions, through that network, we are removing and changing the structure of the physical form in which there is a stagnation of information. We are moving through that, and all of this is occurring through this invisible field that is invisible to our human eyes, but we are able to affect it. It's also the same thing with the fetus in the womb. The fetus in the womb knows how to create the fetus, the form of the human organism. It knows when to stop forming the human fetus, and it knows exactly the time, when the child is going to be born out of the fetus into everyday life. And from there seems to be an order to the evolution and to the development of the organism, of the human body. So all of this is really just this really beautiful time and space that we are participating in, but there are certain instructions, and there is an order, there is an intelligence to the information in which we are participant of. So let's go to the next part. So the hologram of this experience that we are participating in, which we call life, the human organism manifests into awareness. So what is occurring from the fractal of source? It is manifesting into its awareness. It's selected collectively by the intelligence of the morphogenetic field, because there is just the way the worm knew how to create that eye, because it knew that the organism, in order for its highest survival, it needed that eye. And so therefore all of the cells of this organism work together to create what is necessary. So in that same way, we as these human organisms, we as these cells are manifested intelligently into this major organism, which is the planet Earth, that we are participating as a part of a whole. So our life experiences, in essence, we are selecting them. We think we're selecting them, but we are contributing, and we are participating in an intelligent instruction manual to the manifestation of yourself as a human organism. So it chooses the experience which produces the highest potential collective evolution. So every single human organism on this planet is designed genetically and etherically as a whole organism, specifically for the role that assists in the experiences that will contribute to the collective evolution. So the morphogenetic field is an infinite exploration of this collective evolution. This is what we are experiencing collectively and together as we evolve. The morphogenetic field provides the mechanistic instructions, but also an ability for an organism to explore and experience higher forms. So this, in essence, is exactly what we are here to experience through the human experience. And the selection process of experience is occurring simultaneously in multiple dimensions. It can change and as it is observed and stimulated. Okay, just like the planarian worm was able to know that it needed to create an eye, just how the fetus develops exactly as it should for its conception and its for gestation process, just as collectively we are experiencing these lives. The way we observe and we stimulate this organism, we are creating, and we are affecting ourselves, the fractals of ourselves, on multiple dimensional planes. The ancestral memory informs the organism, but just like epigenetic data, it's not a finite blueprint of data. So when this source fractal is creating the hologram of the body, it is attaching to the genetic and ancestral memory. It comes into this organism of the planet Earth, which has its own holographic DNA, the morphogenetic field of the Earth. It's all one field. And within that field, we are introduced into this ancestral collective by resonance. So the organism chooses to evolve through these kinds of resonance experiences. Resonance experiences are then able in all its dimensional expressions. So we are evolving through these interdimensional expressions. So this is how we link our human experience and our interdimensional activity and contact. We are essentially meeting ourselves, our fragments, fractals of ourselves in these dimensional planes. And we are evolving as these aspects of ourselves as well. The human organism has 13 main number of dimensional expressions, and we are moving through that dimensional expression, but there are infinite dimensional expressions that we are part of in a morphogenetic field. It's just this current timeline that we're experiencing in this organism called Earth with the human experience. So the choice of the human organism within this construct defines and changes the collective experience through the morphogenetic field. The morphogenetic field stays, I can't see that word, stays true to its intelligence in order to maintain highest form, balance, and evolutionary productivity. Okay, please excuse the typos. So let's kind of look at what that actually looks like. We are like these spheres. Our entire multidimensional body is like the sphere within this spherical structure. And within the spherical structure, you can imagine the Earth. Our human bodies are participating here. There are millions, of course, of us here on this Earth that participate in this organism called Earth. And collectively, within one of these tiny organisms is infinitely that same structure. And this self-similar organization is shown in the entire multiverse, which we participate in. So in this tiny little construct here is, for example, ourselves, and then each other, and then our family network, our ancestral memory, and then the collective memory of the earth, let's say the Akashic record information data. And then we go into the higher dimensional planes from the 8th dimension into the 13th dimension, where we begin to access higher forms or manifestations of ourselves within those. Again, I'm saying ourselves because, as you can see, we are one organism. There is no separation between us and another. So I'd like to make that very clear, because this is the kind of understanding that we need to have this moment moving forward in order to clarify the focus of the collective as we're beginning to work with the morphogenetic field. Every single one of these planes that our body is, this is exactly how our body looks like. These are spherical planes that are, of course, expressions and holographic projections of each chakra. Each chakra in the system is managing and filtering and processing vibrational frequency from the lowest to the highest dimensional plane. So we actually have less ability to affect through the morphogenetic field the more we are in the lower systems. The second, third, fourth, first, second, third chakras are the ones that manifest the main terrestrial, physical, three-dimensional plane. And the more we stay in those, and the more we are unaware of the higher aspects of ourselves, we limit how much we can actually affect the collective. The more we access the heart, the throat, the third eye, begin to train and clear out the energy and blockages, which are limiting thought forms within the physical body, we can begin to activate and expand our perception. That's what it is, through the integration of those thought forms. Again, we are transmuting, in effect, thought forms of separation into unity. That's all we're doing. How we truly affect the morphogenetic field, though, is by, over here, the 7th and the 8th chakra. This 6th to the 8th chakra are the main centers where we actually begin to affect the morphogenetic field, because this is the junction point in which this infinite source is becoming organized and projecting into the physical plane. So if we don't have mastery over these top aspects of ourselves, we will not be affecting, we will not be creating, in a sense. We are counter-creating. And so where we actually have power as humans is to begin to navigate and function and interact in these higher realms, which is happening inevitably, collectively, because of the current state in the universe that we are moving through. So all of yourselves on all these dimensional planes are constantly interacting. And what that actually looks like is like this. You are at the center of this morphogenetic field, and your fragments are all your past lives. Of course, there is no time. Time is not linear. It is a spherical form that projects into this space like this. You have your fragments, and then you have your aspects, let's say your extraterrestrial aspects, all of this information is also then organized in archetypes through vibrational frequency. And there are 13 main vibrational frequencies which we are interacting and evolving through at this time. So what's the connection between this and our starseed aspects of ourselves? Let's just say, and please don't, I use these images just as a reference point for what we commonly believe is interdimensional beings manifesting in our experiences. But there are any number of manifestations. What we really want to look at and focus on is a vibrational frequency. The spectrum of species that we are experiencing is a manifestation of vibrational frequency from the lowest, most primal form to the highest, most expansive. And how we define that vibrational frequency is by contraction and expansion, just like we are working in these fields within fields. Each one of these organisms either expand, and what does it mean to expand? It means that it becomes aware of itself as the whole, or it only sees itself as the individual. That's the two different definitions of that. So either one of these spectrums of species are the manifestation of that. And they are operating in those dimensional planes from the 8th up to the 13th dimensional plane. We have access to that based on our vibrational frequency. So when we have any kind of experience, we are beginning to affect and work with that information. What we want to go towards now is collective unity consciousness, which means to become aware of yourself as more than just a human form. And all of this beautiful self-organized consciousness within the morphogenetic field has a purpose that is specifically designed, specially designed. How many things in this entire organism went into place to create your specific physical body is just beautiful and magnificent. And you play as part of a symphony of a collective. So yourself, as a result of your ancestors, as a result of your parents, all of these things are a culmination of that information. So the physical body is, it's a hologram of self-organizing information again. And as you are a fractal of this infinite source, all of your aspects, all of your families make part of that resonance information that you are a part of. And we are moving collectively, evolving together as that. Just like these groups of birds, for example, it is one consciousness that is moving this collective movement. Just like these birds know how and when to turn or move in order to move the entire whole, and they make these incredibly beautiful shapes. The human race is exactly like that, and so is our fragments. They are moving through this intelligence of the morphogenetic field. We also see this in ants and the organization of their movement and their collective, communication. We see this in bees. We see this in mushrooms, fungi, and trees. So as you can see, we are an interconnected network that has the ability to communicate. This is where we tune into our telepathic communications, which is not something completely rare and that only few people can do. Every single human can do that. And every single human can tune into the intuitive field. So what does it mean to become awake and aware is to activate precisely these tools as more and more in this current timeline, and this is where we come here. Why is during this current timeline we are more aware and have the capacity of tuning into these higher mind, right? These higher abilities, is because exactly where we are in this moment of evolution. Right now, we are moving through the 13th. So if you take a look at this spiral right here, we are traveling through this gigantic spiral organism. And in this current physical dimension that we are sharing, you and I, we are moving through the 13th dimensional layer. So all of the constructs of our reality are based in this 13th dimensional layer. This is how information self-organizes itself in this current dimensional layer. We have the 13 astrological signs. We have the 13 archetypes. We can see these patterns and this beautiful structure infinitely in all organisms, from plants to how fetuses develop to how the human body is structured. We are seeing this sequence in the manifestation of the physicality of our reality. And as we are evolving collectively, I had a very interesting question from the talk the other day, asking, so does it mean that, in other words, if I don't evolve, or if others don't evolve, that means I can't evolve until I wait for the other to evolve? And that was a very important question, because how we are evolving collectively is actually through this morphogenetic field. We have to destroy the concept that we are physical, because again, you are one tiny part of a collective whole. And your many fragments of yourself are evolving as part of yourself. And so as you evolve, you are affecting your fragments. Your fragments are your family. Your fragments are your friends, your neighbors. Everywhere, even the time and date that you were born, the families and the cities that you live in, all of that is designed by resonance. So essentially, you are evolving through all of that process. And you're doing so collectively as well as individually. One more thing I want to say about this, that we are moving from, let's say this green color is a lower vibrational frequency into, let's say this white color is a higher vibrational frequency. So this is how we are evolving through the trajectory of this collective evolution. And when we look at our genetic code and our genetic information, it's important to understand, what is this genetic information? All of this data within the morphogenetic field is available through the DNA. The DNA is projecting holographically the system that creates your body, or I should say the organism product hologram that you are. Everything from the way that you look, the place you were born, every single detail is designed specifically for your expression, for the service and the purpose of the collective evolution. And what we have in our dark DNA is exactly the instructions of this morphogenetic field, which allows us to access the fragments of ourselves that we are yet unaware of. It's through this evolutionary process that we become aware of these aspects of ourselves. The higher vibrational you are, you begin to see ghosts, you begin to have paranormal experiences, you experience this incredible, invisible realm, so to speak. And it's within that realm that surrounds us, that is constantly moving around us as an expression of ourselves, that we begin to interact with. And in dream time, because when you leave your physical body, when you're dreaming, just as you will in death, you are becoming aware of yourself in all of those dimensional layers. And it's incredibly important to learn how to navigate those, just like you are navigating the physical body in the physical everyday life, because all of those are participating in the collective movement. Now, let's talk about what happens with DNA. And I'm sorry, this was supposed to do something fancy, like pop up, and then the two other pictures were supposed to open up separately. But what I'm showing here, let me, I don't have it in presentation mode. So sorry. What our DNA actually looks like is what we see here in the physical realm is this DNA structure. But what happens, I'm so sorry.
Is it in the play mode? Is it in the
It's actually not, but if I'll just go ahead and show you like this, sorry. This is what we can see from our DNA, but what happens, and when we talk about activation of DNA, what's actually happening is that as we become aware of ourselves in the non-physical dimensions, as we become aware of ourselves in all these other dimensional layers from the 8th into the 13th, our ET fragments, angelic beings, all of that, is that we are activating these parts of our DNA. And essentially, the DNA ends up looking like a giant spherical network. So your entire biocomputer, that is your physical body, is mostly non-physical rather than just the physical. The mechanistic product of the genetic code that is writing out the code to make your physical body is just one part of the definition of what you are as a whole, as a collective organism. So we actually, our DNA actually looks more like this in our physical body. So what does it mean to become whole, to end this? Healing, right? So healing means becoming whole. It means becoming aware of yourself as all experience fragments. It means your choice to expand or contract is the choice of creation or contraction, expansion or contraction, creation or counter-creation. And it is the application of your free will as part of this collective field. You are choosing through resonance within a construct. Okay, to change your resonance, then you begin to affect the collective. So how we begin to change the collective is actually by changing this vibrational frequency, because only when you change the vibrational frequency can you actually begin to affect anything in this morphogenetic field. This is how we begin to access aspects of ourselves here on these higher dimensional planes and experience what it's like to apply these free will expressions. Essentially, becoming whole means becoming all the organism. That is how we are affecting and working through this morphogenetic field as one, and moving collectively through that movement of evolution. So that is where I will end the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Geraldine.
Thank you so much.
Let's see if there's some questions out there. Anyone? I do have people on mute. Mariana, I'm going to unmute you. And okay, that was great. So let me ask you, Geraldine. Evolution at this point in our history seems to be more engaged than it ever has been. What are the factors that are leading to this moment in time and the evolution that's happening right now?
What are the factors leading up?
Yeah, why is it speeding up now? Why are we in the midst of a huge evolutionary shift?
Yeah, so the way that we are currently spiraling through the universe, the entire multiverse actually is moving through this spiral form. But as well as we're moving through a spiral form, the trajectory of that movement looks like an infinity cycle. Okay, when we are at the center point of that infinity cycle, which we are right now, things are speeding up. And the further away we get from that point, things slow down, which we experienced historically in our lifetime, looking back at history, all the events that have happened, before the Industrial Revolution, before technology started to blow up in our current society. This is an example of that slowing down, going up to the speeding up rate. And so we're experiencing that speeding point in which we are merging the physical and the non-physical, and we're doing so with technology as well. Everything is an expression of unity. So we have gone from separation, so when we didn't have telephones, to the moment of connection and unity. We see that in our society. So this is happening micro, macro. And then internally, it's almost as if we become more aware through these phases of that evolutionary process of ourselves as one. We become aware of techniques to access the physical body, and we experience this cyclically. Everything is cyclical. Everything is cyclical. The way our body functions, the way the liver regenerates, the way we are learning and evolving information collectively is also cyclical, which is why we have ancient civilizations that have access to higher forms of information. And then we kind of don't have that information for a little bit, as we're moving through this cyclical pattern. But in fact, the entire organism is evolving through the collective, as a collective.
It's cyclical. Oh, go ahead. No, finish, please. Yeah.
I just want to add one tiny little thing, because just to piece things together, so are these interdimensional aspects of ourselves. They are also part of this evolutionary process. They are also evolving, becoming aware of themselves as the roles that they're choosing as this infinite consciousness to experience.
So it's cyclical, but it's also spiral, because it's not just coming back to where it went, it's going to another level and another level.
Exactly.
So, but we are at a turning point, I feel, and I think that's why we're doing this today at this time, because we're at a critical point where maybe the collective has to decide if we really want to go to the next level of a meta-human super being morphogenetic wholeness or not. I think we're at this point. What do you think about that?
Well, yes. I mean, the name of the game in this three-dimensional plane that we're experiencing here collectively is this dualistic expression, which means that as we see these dualistic experiences, which causes this fusion in order to create the transformation, the mechanism of transformation internally and externally as a collective, and that movement through experience is what causes evolution. In fact, this is what we are here as source, becoming aware of itself as all experiences. This is what we're doing. So again, it's cyclical, this process, and what we're choosing between is either contraction or expansion, love or fear. These are the little choices that we make every single moment, whether it's how we feel in this moment, what we're going to be eating, what we're going to be doing, our choices for life work. All of those little things are like fractals of choices that you make that are either expanding or contracting. And this is how you are contributing to the collective evolution. Now, it's not right or wrong. You can also choose to contract. But what happens when the organism contracts is eventually death, because it's not moving. It's not moving. It's not evolving with the whole organism. It's the same for partnerships. It's the same. We know in two partnerships, when one person evolves and the other doesn't, it cannot stay in that same relationship anymore. It has to move on. And it's the same for all organisms and in nature. So we're just moving and experiencing these cycles of nature.
Right,
Of this intelligence, the morphogenetic field.
Right, because we don't move, we stagnate, and stagnation is not what the flow of the universe is all about.
Exactly.
So Mariana, do you have a question here?
Yes, Geraldine, thank you so much. I'm humbled by your eloquence. I love your eloquence. It's how you explain. It's just extraordinary. The question I have is if you can just talk a little bit further about the extraterrestrial DNA aspect, and how it ties into the morphogenesis process as a whole.
Absolutely. So as I was showing the DNA, the parts that I was showing that kind of appear on one side and the other side of that DNA is basically our ET or our alien DNA that we become aware of. Okay, this is what we're activating within this physical hologram. And as we elevate our vibrational frequency, we have access to the awareness of ourselves as these extraterrestrial beings, entities, whatever you want to define them as, fractals of infinite consciousness as well. And for example, the hybridization program is the combination of this human and these higher vibrational frequencies in order to create this new organism. So it is the expression of evolution, just like a tree leaves seeds in order to grow more trees. It's the same way we're participating in that in a terrestrial organic system as well as an interdimensional organic system, right? And so these interdimensional beings are us, fragments of ourselves and we become aware of them based on our resonance. So wherever we're at vibrationally, we're going to experience that specific experience. We're going to become aware of them through those experiences. They can be good, they can be bad, whatever it is. It's through the resonance. The idea of the human is to be able to sustain this hologram in its highest evolving form, its healthiest state, and be able, through these experiences, to continue to see itself as infinite organisms. So we have to be able to see, draconians up until angelic beings, interact with all of these aspects of ourselves. And this is what this contact is about. And as we become in contact with these beings, these ranges of species, which are organized through vibrational frequency, and I guess an organization of archetypes, as I call them, we are activating ourselves, essentially. We are expanding ourselves. Whatever we are, how can I finish that? So then as we are moving through this contact, we see ourselves as more. We see ourselves as the whole.